in Birmingham jail. Now, what had happened was he was working with a network of pastors and community leaders and advocates. And they were concerned about the merchants who would still turn black people away. They were concerned about segregation. And they were also concerned about just the ways in which people continued to be treated. And when they were called in, they went in and did a protest. And it was deemed an unlawful protest, and so he was jailed for 11 days. While he was in jail, he wrote a letter, and he talked about peace. And he said this. It was a very long letter. It read almost like a book. He said, "I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's greatest stumbling block in the stride towards freedom is not white citizen counselors or the Ku Klux Klan, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, 'I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action.'" He says, "Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection." So what is peace? And I'm just going to put up a whole bunch of definitions here. Peace is a state of tranquility or quiet rest. It's also freedom from civil disobedience. It is a state of security or order within a community provided by law. It's a state or a period in time when there's agreement that there will be no war. But I really like this particular definition. It says, peace is freedom from disquieting or oppressive thoughts or emotions. And you want to think about that. Peace is harmony in our relationships. And then, of course, peace is a greeting. Peace, right? Or a farewell. Peace. So, Martin Luther King was identifying two types of peace. There's a peace that exists when we see that there's something going wrong, but there's order, right? It's kind of like what we're experiencing right now. There's a whole lot of order. There's a police order. But when you look at the ways in which we are treated, there's still a lot of inequitable, unfair, unjust treatment towards us. We are in a state of what is called negative peace. Positive peace is emotion. It's a movement towards justice in the every single day. It doesn't mean the world is perfect, but as soon as you recognize the war that is at play, you immediately move into a place where you create enough tension so that people start paying attention. And as they pay attention, some will be motivated, and all should be actually motivated to change things. So the goal of today is to move us into a space where we begin the healing journey so that we can act. So the main goal of negative peace is not having to deal with uncomfortable issues. Have you ever been in a situation where you agreed with someone and you stayed silent just to maintain the peace?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, we've all done that, right? You don't get what you want. You feel like you've been rolled over by the other person, but because you want to maintain peace, you stay there. But on the other hand, when you actually voice that you see that there's something wrong, you're creating a tension. And it is only with tension that we change things. It is only with tension that the other person has to consider what is going on here. And you have to consider what is going on here. And the resolution for that to then come into play. So one of the things that we're really uncomfortable with is tension. But for us as a people, we have to know that it's okay. Tension is good because it's actually promoting change. So I want us to get real comfortable with that today. And then, almost done.
We learned that we are 36% Nigerian.
Oh.
Yeah, with 7% Benin Togo. We have a strong connection as well. I think another percentage, and I'm not going to do the math, to Wales, because my grandfather was a Welsh Jamaican. And you know, it's just amazing when you do that. You feel a different connection. And we just celebrated Ghana's independence at City Hall. Yes. And you know, they have a great program encouraging people to come back to Ghana. And I know we're really pushing and encouraging Nigeria to do the same thing. But we need to go back. I'm telling you, it was amazing to go to Nigeria. Is just one Nigerian in here too? Who's Nigerian? Yes. Four. Right. And Ghana as well? Ghana? You know, but like, who's Caribbean? From Jamaica? I see Guyana. Trinidad? And Trinidad? Oh, Jamaica, Trinidad.
I was on the board there, they're all African.
Yeah.
I was on the board there, it's not where I'm from.
Well, this is the thing. Slavery was but an interruption in our history. We were stolen, right? And that's why it's good to go back and learn. But we do still need to have an appreciation to our islands. And what we're working on at City Hall, especially with our connection to Nigeria and Ghana and Africa, we are working on the decolonization of trade. And we're working on, even in the Caribbean, and with some of these larger development countries and islands like Jamaica, Trinidad, that has a lot of industry, working on bringing back trade between the islands and Jamaica. That's what we're working on.
Yeah.
Sorry? Free trade. Well, might not free, right? But we're working on it, and it's all about pairing businesses together and encouraging investments in capital, wealth and gain. So this is where we're working on it. If you want more information, please contact me, and we can start having that conversation, because some good things are happening with this. Okay? But thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
But before you step away, Councillor Williams, we have a little token of our appreciation. The fact that, you know, we can always count on you. You hear that? We can always count on you to deliver, because it makes a difference when you have someone that looks like you, understand your journey, and when you say, I need help, is there to help. And she is one of our sisters, sitting at the table, and she's encouraging all of us, we need to sit at the table, because it's not easy. Can you imagine just, she's there, by herself. It's challenging. It really is. So we need to step up, or ship out. So step up, right? We need to step up. It's 2020, and we need to be focused, we need to be inspired, and we need to see the vision moving forward. 2020, we own this.
That's right.
Okay?
2020 means clear vision.
Yeah.
ensuring diversity, ensuring opportunities, that those things will now become available to all of us. So begin to take note of where we are and those things that are happening. And pay attention to the present as we go through this afternoon. We are going to remember the past, but what we want to do is we want to release the past so then we can grab hold of the future, right? If we're looking back, if we are singing sour grapes, if we are still in a place of complaining, I'm going to talk about something called the mirror effect a little bit later, but we mirror the thing that has been done to us. And what God wants us to do is to begin to mirror Him. So as we mirror God, we love, because God is love, God is light, right? So if we're light and love, that is what comes into our own parameter, right? So if God is at the center, love and light come to us. So I'm going to play the 2 videos. I'm going to get these things out of the way in a second. I want you to pay attention to the first video, which is an apology that comes from a chief in Ghana. I don't know if you say Ghanaian chief, but he is a chief and is offering an apology. And then I want you to watch the second video, which is an apology that Marianne Williamson, who is a presidential candidate right now, she did a mass apology on behalf of white Americans to Black Americans. And I want us to watch these 2 pieces as we go into our afternoon. So give me a second and I'll set up, you continue to eat, and by the time both videos have played, then you'll be done your lunch. One of the things all of us need to come back to in the present is that he wasn't alive back then, and neither were we. But he recognizes the harm that was done. And he is reaching out, and in a very, I got sincerity as well, in a very sincere way, saying, I wasn't there, but I know the wrong that was done. And on behalf of my ancestors and the chiefs, I render an apology. And so the question is, if we weren't all there, but we want to acknowledge each other. Some of us want an apology. Others want to offer an apology. Can we be in a place where the one who offers, we receive? Because not everyone is going to stand up like he did and render that apology. They will make excuses, and in the same way they'll tell the historical stories, but they will never come forward and say, I apologize. So be cognizant of that. We always want to make sure that as we engage in hearing an apology, we judge the sincerity of it. We discern whether or not this person is actually true. And if they are true, if we realize that moving forward, they never want to go back in the direction where they're coming from, that's called the time to reconcile. But if the person stands there and makes all the excuses in the world, well, I wasn't really there. Well, it wasn't me. That's not a person who's ready to accept any kind of responsibility for shifting the future. So, and that's the way that we should operate in our daily lives. If we are seeing something is wrong, we speak it, the person apologizes, and we are discerning that the person is not authentic, then we can say, okay, moving forward, that's not a reason to reconcile. We're not ready yet. But sometimes you just need to hear one person speak the apology. So the next one that I'm going to play for you, like I said, is Marianne Williamson. I want you to listen to this one intently. If you've seen it already, still listen. If you haven't, listen to this one intently. Injustice, may it be heard now. Let the agony that we have felt as a people, the consciousness that we have of the pain that we all hold, let it be known now. We don't hold back the tears. We scream if we need to. But it is here, right now, that we start to let it out. We've been on a very, very long journey, and God is returning us home. The home might be a physical place, but home is actually here. It's an inward place. Here is where we meet God. Here is where He heals us and He restores us and He plants our feet on solid ground. And then if you want to make the physical journey home, you can do that too. So I could have played it without the scream. But I wanted, when I listened to it the first time and I heard the scream, it went right through me. And I felt it because before I watched this video, I had forgiven white people probably about 7 or 8 times. But it wouldn't leave. Not like my other forgivenesses. It just wouldn't go. I kept trying, I kept trying, I kept trying. I forgave them for all sorts of atrocities. I forgave them for all of the things that they ever did wrong across time. I needed an acknowledgement in order to truly forgive. And the scream, and I love the way Marianne Williamson responded to that. It wasn't a, here's a tissue. It wasn't a shoving it aside. It was simply, let the screams that weren't able to be heard before, let them be heard now. So I do my forgivenesses alone. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk in a little while. I do my forgiveness in front of a mirror. And the reason why I do my forgiveness in front of a mirror is because I know there is something at play with all of us. It's called the mirror effect. When we are harmed, there is a record that is formed. Every single one of us have a record of wrong. And I write about this, it's the 2nd chapter of my book, or actually in the 1st chapter of my book, 490, Forgive and Live Fearlessly. I write about the record of wrong. It's mentioned in the Bible by Paul. He says, love is patient, love is kind. It keeps no record of wrong. But every single one of us keeps a record of wrong. It's recorded in our eyes. And because that record is there, I can use your body to find the moments in time that you need to forgive. So I can tell you the first moment in time you became afraid by finding that record. Most of us, when we hold our hands out like this, and we think of something positive, if somebody tries to push down on our hand, we'll stand nice and firm. But if we think about something negative, we can never hold our hand up. You can try it for yourself. So I use a process called applied kinesiology to actually identify every moment that my clients need to forgive. But there's only one moment that really matters. And it's the first moment in time that you actually become afraid. Some of us, it's 3. Some of us, it's 5. Some of us, it's 11 years old. For some of us, we go all the way back to the ancestors. We have a record that begins before we were even born. And some of us, it's in the womb. And some of us, it's when we're 13. Whatever it is, I help you find it. I help you remember the moment, and then I help you forgive every single person in that moment. And when I help you do that, I'm teaching you something. I'm teaching you a pattern you've been trapped in since that thing happened. And it's a pattern that replays over and over and over again until you forgive it, until you see it, and break the chain. So you might be in your regular daily life, You're going through, you're meeting person X, Y, Z. All of a sudden there's a trigger and you find yourself responding to that person. And what I want to let you know is every person that triggers you is there for a reason. They're there to help you remember something that you need to go back to and forgive. And when you go back to that moment and forgive it, whatever pattern you've been repeating is instantly broken. We have a wound. As a group of people, as an African consciousness, we have a wound. We've been brutalized, we've been beaten, we've been raped, we've been totally grabbed by the collar and just whipped into ships, gone to foreign land, experienced so many hardships. And the wound is so severe. But in the moments across time when we've been wounded, we've stood and we've looked at somebody, the person who wounded us, and as they thought about us, they thought something that is now embedded in our memory. As they spoke to us, they spoke words that are now our words. As they kicked us, as they beat us, as they raped us, things were being spoken even without words. And as we looked into that mirror, we believed it. And now we've been repeating the pattern for generations. And it's time for the pattern of hopelessness, helplessness, rage, anger, the pattern of disbelief in ourselves, the lack of confidence, the lack of self-respect. It is time for all of that to end. 401 years. This is the point where God says, return. When we forgive the other person first. But then we look at ourselves. This is why there's a mirror. We look at ourselves and we forgive ourselves for exactly the same thing. You are no good. I am no good. You will never go anywhere. I will never go anywhere. Think about it. We've been looking in a mirror that sends us every unloving message that can be sent. It makes us intolerant. It makes us prideful. It makes us immodest. It makes us hate. It makes us anxious. It makes us insecure. We're disgusted. We're unhappy. We're restless. We're conflicted. We're moving all over the place all the time. We're unsafe, and in an unsafe place, no one can concentrate. In an unsafe place filled with hatred, people only become depressed. So what I teach my clients is this. We're going to move through a process where I'm going to help you forgive it. And then in 3 days, I want to let you know your depression, which you've suffered with for almost all your life, or for 3 years, or whatever the case may be, it will break. Because we're going to hit the right place. We're not just going to sit down and talk about what you need to forgive. We're going to talk about the moment you need to forgive. So here's the layer for us as Black people. Just like everybody else in the world, we have families, and our families harm us, so we have to forgive them. We're living in communities that are harmful to us, and so we have to forgive our communities. We've lived amongst nations that have harmed us, and so we have to forgive nations. The layers and layers and layers that we have to forgive and move through, it can sometimes seem insurmountable. But when you move through it, you see you, and only you. You see love and light, and that's all you see. That's where God meets us. The forgiveness process that I'm going to introduce you today brought me on my own transformation journey. And when I say transformation, I was literally taking off those thoughts, those words, all of those actions that others have done to me all of my life that I've been mirroring. I was peeling them off like layers until I came to who I truly am. And when you can look at yourself and say, I love you, you've reached that point. Not others, but you. Because when you can say, I love you, Joan, there's something beautiful about that. When you can say, I love my God, because you experience God in the fullness that there is when you take away all the layers, you can say, I love you with all my heart, my soul, and my might. And that is the true return. And when we truly return, that is when we can love all others. So, you forgive the other, you forgive you. You ask for forgiveness. And then you're filled with the light and love. It becomes a purifying process that returns all of us to that place where we should be, the true self.
I wanted to come and welcome you to City Hall. This is your house, and it's been a pretty special month celebrating the Afro-Caribbean community, celebrating the Black community in Brampton. We just had a phenomenal event last night. It was a full house here at City Hall, and we've actually, Francis has been taking the lead on it, but we've been trying to look at ways to celebrate the community. Last year we unveiled a street sign at Black History Month for the first Black alderman in the city for the new subdivision being created in the West End. Last night we unveiled a street sign for the first senior military officer from World War I. I couldn't believe this when I read it, but in World War I, Black Canadians were not allowed to fight. But actually 3 were permitted. And they actually came from the Lawrence Scots, which is our local military unit. And so we contacted the family of one of them, and this is the suggestion of the Brampton Legion, and we had them last night as we unveiled the street sign. So we're always looking at ways to work with the community, to celebrate the community, and I would note, we've actually taken it this year to economic development as well. You'll find that often governments have economic development that's focused on Europe, that's focused on India and China, but there is an absence of effort when it comes to the Caribbean and Africa. And so we've started in Brampton to look at that engagement, and it's been so exciting. 2 weeks ago I was in Nigeria, and I'd been there in 2007 when I was with the Canadian government. I couldn't believe how much it changed. And there's a tech sector there that's booming, and the reality is there's not a lot of presence from countries, and so I think it's an incredible opportunity for Canada. We have one company, Pertinence Group, that's going to come from Nigeria to Brampton, and we're going to continue to put energy behind some of these initiatives. We've been meeting with, again, government and consulate over similar ambitions, and so there's lots happening. If you're interested at all of how to be involved, just let Frances know. She actually knows Faith from when they both lived in Calgary. I just found out that she was on your campaign when you were involved in politics in Calgary. So what a small world. They meet in Brampton and they're from Calgary. And I wish I'd known you're having this event, because last night when I was visiting Nollywood in Nigeria, they gave me a traditional outfit. And I wore it last night with some pretty mean looking shoes and a beautiful top. I would have put it back on tonight, but this afternoon, but I just wanted to come briefly. I know I'm not part of the agenda, just to say that we love the community in Brampton. You make the city so amazing, and to this event, for your leadership on it, to thank you for taking the time to bring the community together.
Thank you. So, we talked about the shifting sands, right? And we talked about the environment that is now permitting certain things to happen. And it is when we can remain in the present as opposed to the past that we will be able to see some of these opportunities that are unveiling themselves for us, right? So if we're in a state of unforgiveness, we keep looking back. Said after 400 years, we would go out, that we would be prosperous, that we would return to Him. Today, we choose to return by forgiving our white brothers and sisters, for those nations who have stood beside them and have watched our struggle and done nothing about it. We include them also in this forgiveness. Amen. So, I want you to repeat after me. White people, all nations beside you, who have watched our struggle. We forgive you for stifling us, for judging us, controlling us, violating our progress, and our human rights, wrapping a chain of slavery around our ancestors' bodies, around our minds, forcefully hiding the truth from us, assuming a position of superiority, disrespecting us, beating us, raping us, taking from us those things that are important for human dignity. We forgive you for destroying our families, for destroying our children, for causing us to become ill. Take a nice, deep breath and join with one another now and set the intention to understand the complexity of all that we have endured across time. Notice the plans of God as He mentioned in the Abrahamic covenant. Abraham had a nightmare, and he wanted to understand what the nightmare was all about. And prior to that, God has shown him the stars in the sky and said, your descendants would be as many as the stars in the sky. But as he wanted to know the interpretation of that nightmare, God said to him, your descendants will be enslaved. We have been on a journey, and it has been 400 years. The covenant is now fulfilled, and we are moving forward. See our humanity come alive. See us take up positions of authority. See us handling the shift that is to come politically, socially. See our communities now moving into a space where we are healthy, where we help one another, where we protect one another, where we love one another, where we write our own history rather than relying on others to do it for us. Take a nice deep breath. And exhale. And see the possibility. White people, repeat after me. White people, all others who have watched our struggle, we forgive you for being racist, discriminating against us, violating us, destroying our families, instead of leaving us alone, supporting us where you can, respecting us, hearing our voices, shifting the sands, the political territories, leaving Africa alone, seeing our capacity, and our abilities, granting us the ability to walk freely, limitless, boundless. We forgive you for being dishonest about who we are, about what we are to accomplish, about our history. Take a nice deep breath. And release. I have felt intolerant, prideful, immodest, jealous, envious. I have been angry, regretful, guilty. I have been enraged, insecure, helpless, hopeless. I have felt disgusted, hungry for something different, for something more. I've been bitter. I have felt so unworthy, like I'm not good, or good enough. But it's time now for this to shift. Take a nice deep breath. Release the despair and the grief that is among us. Choose now to see our connection and our togetherness and our bond instead of the isolation that has been, instead of the loneliness that has taken up residence amongst us, instead of the separation and the disconnection that has invaded every territory of our lives. Let us now replace it. See your patience rise. See your tolerance level move to a new level. See our nation go to a place where we connect on a soul level with one another. See us using moderate word. See us thinking wonderful things about one another and all others. See us living in a place where we do not regret the experiences that we have had, but instead enjoy every moment of life, every breath that fills our lungs. Now move to that place where you begin to see yourself being fed good things. The hope and the joy and the peace that we've been longing for is ours. See the love that has always been. Grow your faith in this moment for what is to come. Build in your mind every optimistic thought about who we are as a people. See our goodness, our gladness, our creativity, our productivity. See it and set an intention to become that. Say, I am creative. I am productive. I am peaceful. I am balanced. I am happy. Filled with joy. I am good. And I am good enough. I am worthy of love. God has already said it. I receive it as it always was. Take a nice deep breath and release every negative emotion that you can contemplate. Release it and replace it now with the light and love of God. Again, nice deep breath, light and love, peace, hope, joy, charity, self-control, grace, mercy. These are the attributes of our God, the God whose image we are made in. One more time, nice deep breath, breath of life, light, love, peace, hope, joy, humility, self-control, grace, mercy, and tyranny. We know the reasons we have been so greatly impacted. It's divinely ordered. But on a micro level, we know the mirror we look into. We know the mirror all others look into. One of separation and division from love, and entering into a space of fear. And that what we give one another is fear as opposed to love. Let's make a decision right now. I will not fear. I will love. I will not fear.
I will not fear.
I will love.
I will love.
I will forgive.
I will forgive.
I will reconcile.
I will reconcile.
I will return
I will return
to who I am
to who I am
and to my God.
and to my God.
I let go.
I let go.
So visualize yourself releasing and letting go. White people, I love you,
When you love you,
and I accept you
and I accept you
for the part you've played
for the part you play
in this divine order.
in this divine order.
I thank you
I thank you
for the lessons you've taught me
for the lessons you've taught me
about how to treat myself
about how to treat myself
and all humanity.
and all humanity.
And with the love of God,
And with the love of God,
I embrace you.
I embrace you.
I love you.
I love you.
I reconcile with you.
I reconcile with you.
It's time
It's time
for me to go on with my life,
for me to go on with my life,
for me to be healthy
for me to be healthy
and happy,
and happy,
to live fully,
to live fully,
energized,
energized,
and walking in my purpose.
and walking in my purpose.
I have a destiny.
I have a destiny.
We have a destiny.
We have a destiny.
And it's time now
And it's time now
for us to live it.
for us to live it.
I will be
I will be
like Christ.
like Christ.
Take a nice deep breath. And release. I will be
I will be
light,
light
and love.
and love.
I will be a city on a hill,
I will be a city on a hill,
shining for all to see.
shining for all to see.
Nice deep breath. And release. We're just going to do the self-forgiveness because this is the way it seals. Okay, yes, stretch your arms. The self-forgiveness does not take long because really what we're doing is we're forgiving ourselves for mirroring all of those things that we have just said. And I thank you for bearing with me. We're at 4 o'clock. We're supposed to be out of the room now, but let's just do this. Again, join your hands to the other person's back. Nation of Africa, I forgive you
I forgive you
for stifling us,
for stifling us,
being ignorant towards us,
being ignorant towards us,
judging us falsely,
judging us falsely,
controlling us,
controlling us,
violating our progress,
violating our progress,
our human rights,
our human rights,
wrapping a chain of mental slavery around us,
wrapping a chain of mental slavery around us,
forcefully
forcefully
holding us back.
holding us back.
We forgive your superiority complex, your inferiority complex,
We forgive your inferiority complex,
segregating us,
segregating us,
creating a division,
creating a division,
being materialistic,
being materialistic,
defaming us,
defaming us,
destroying our family,
destroying our family,
making us unhealthy,
making us unhealthy,
instead of
instead of
supporting us,
supporting
our independence,
supporting our independence,
accepting us,
accepting us,
granting us freedom
granting us
and
freedom
love,
and love,
leaving us alone
leaving us
to
alone,
live fully,
to live fully,
respecting us
respecting
and
us
our indigenous identity,
and our indigenous
hearing
identity,
our voices,
hearing our voices,
creating systems
creating systems
that allow coexistence,
that allow coexistence,
speaking truth
speaking truth
about who we are.
about who we are,
Being secure,
being secure,
fair,
fair,
equitable.
equitable.
Take a nice deep breath. Black nation, African nation,
African nation,
I understand.
I understand.
We've been mirroring
We've been mirroring
the ones who wounded us.
the ones who wounded us,
And it's time now
and it's time now
for us to end this.
for us to end this,
For us to see our true selves.
for us to see our true selves,
For us to boldly
for us to boldly
become the true self
become the true self
and step into the place
and step into the place
and the position
and the position
where God wants us.
where God wants us.
It's time
It's time
for us to go on with our lives.
for us to go on with our lives,
For us to be healthy
for us to be healthy
and happy.
and happy.
I release.
I release,
We release
we despair,
the loneliness,
loneliness,
the isolation,
isolation,
and the great grief.
the great grief.
We set it aside
We set it aside
as we grow our faith
as we grow our faith
and our hope.
and our hope.
It's time now
It's time
for us to love
for us to love
and live in peace.
and live in peace.
Take a nice deep breath. The despair, the depression, the isolation, the grief is really huge in this room. So let's set an intention to release that now. Release it, release it, release it. As a nation, and envision the entire African nation who has been crying, who has been groaning, deep groans of sorrow. And let us set a conscious intention to release that now. Release it, release it, release it, release it, release it. Good. I let go of the intolerance. You can let go now. And the pride, the immodesty, the guilt, the regret, the anger, the rage, the insecurity, the control, bitterness, hunger, thirst, unworthiness, feeling of not being good or good enough, the unhappiness, the restlessness, the imbalance, and the conflict. We release it and we take in love. Nice deep breath. Let love enter in, breath of life. Good, 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 good. Imahaso push, mahaso, imahasekina mahasho, imahese eki hisimosh. So, let us love one another. I want you to find one person and give them a hug and say, I love you, and I accept you for who you are.
I love you, accept you.
I love you and accept you for who you are. Really nice exercise.
I'll marry you, I love you. And accept who you are.
Okay, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. I just want you to see the love. Just want you to see the love. Come back, come back, come back.
Yes, what's the right?
All right. So let's finish off.
See what it's for.
African nation.
Llaman el food.
Say it after me. African nation. I love you. And I accept you. For who you are. It's time. For us to go on with our lives. For us to be happy. And healthy. To live fully. Energized. And walking in our purpose. African nation. Fulfill the covenant. Do what God wants you to do. Amen.